There is something every single human culture in history has in common. Everyone, without exception. They all found a way to feel different, to step outside their normal mind, to alter their consciousness. The Egyptians did it. The Greeks did it. The Aztecs did it. Hunter-gatherers in Africa did it 50,000 years ago, and your brain is still wired to want it. The question isn't whether ancient humans sought altered states. The question is, how many different ways did they find to get there? And the answer is going to surprise you. Before we talk about methods, we need to talk about why. Why did ancient humans want to feel different in the first place? The answer goes deeper than curiosity, deeper than recreation. It goes all the way down to how the human brain is built. Your brain has a reward system. When you do something that helps you survive, eating, bonding, reproducing, your brain releases dopamine. You feel good. You want to do it again. This system is ancient. It predates humans by hundreds of millions of years. But here is the strange part. Many plants and fungi produce chemicals that interact directly with this reward system, not because they evolved for humans, but because the same neurological pathways exist across most animals. When an ancient human accidentally consumed one of these substances, their brain didn't say, "This is wrong." Their brain said more. Ronald Siegel, a psychopharmacologist at UCLA, proposed in the 1980s that the pursuit of altered consciousness is a fourth biological drive, alongside hunger, thirst, and reproduction. Not a choice, a drive. Elephants seek out fermented fruit deliberately. Reindeer eat psychedelic mushrooms. Birds eat fermented berries until they can't fly straight. Cats go wild for catnip. The desire to alter consciousness is not uniquely human. It is animal. It is biological. It is ancient. The oldest and most widespread method was also the most accidental: fermentation. When fruit falls from a tree and sits on the ground, wild yeast converts the sugars into alcohol. Every fruit-eating animal on Earth has been encountering fermented fruit for as long as fruit has existed. Ancient humans didn't invent alcohol. They discovered it. The same way every other fruit-eating animal discovered it. By accident. And then on purpose. The oldest confirmed evidence of intentional alcohol production dates to around 9,000 years ago in China. Researchers found chemical residue in ancient pottery, proving people were deliberately fermenting rice, honey, and fruit. But the consumption of naturally fermented substances is almost certainly much older. Here is something that changes how you think about civilization. Some researchers now believe that humans didn't settle down to farm grain for bread. They settled down to farm grain for beer. The alcohol hypothesis. Before bread was a staple, fermented grain beverages may have been the reason people stopped moving. Whether or not that is true, what is certain is this. By the time the first cities appeared, alcohol was already deeply embedded in human culture, as medicine, as ritual, as social glue. The Sumerians had a goddess of beer. Her name was Ninkasi, and they wrote her a hymn that doubles as a beer recipe 4,000 years ago. But alcohol was only the beginning. Ancient humans discovered something even more powerful. Certain plants, when eaten, smoked, or brewed, produced experiences that went far beyond relaxation. Visions, voices, the feeling of leaving your body entirely. The oldest confirmed evidence of psychoactive plant use comes from burial sites in the Pamir Mountains of Central Asia, dating to around 500 BC. Excavators found braziers containing cannabis residue with unusually high THC content. This wasn't rope. This wasn't medicine. This was ritual intoxication. But the evidence goes much further back. In 2019, researchers found tobacco seeds deliberately placed in a 12,000-year-old hearth in the Utah desert. 12,000 years ago, before pottery, before farming, before any civilization you've ever heard of. And then there are the mushrooms. Psilocybin mushrooms grow on every inhabited continent. They have been available to humans for our entire existence. Cave paintings in Algeria, dating to 9,000 years ago, appear to show mushroom imagery in ritual contexts. The Aztecs called psilocybin mushrooms teonanacatl, flesh of the gods. They used them in religious ceremonies to communicate with deities, to receive visions to make decisions about war, agriculture, and governance. This wasn't recreation. This was infrastructure. The ancient Greeks had the Eleusinian Mysteries, a secret ritual held every year for nearly 2,000 years. Participants drank a substance called kykeon. Researchers now believe kykeon contained ergot, a fungus that grows on grain containing compounds chemically similar to LSD. The most influential philosophers in Western history, Plato, Aristotle, Cicero, almost certainly experienced this ritual. Researchers have identified over 200 plant species used by indigenous cultures worldwide specifically for their psychoactive properties, from the Amazon to Siberia, from West Africa to the Australian outback. Every environment humans ever lived in contained plants that could alter the mind, and humans always found them. But here is something most people never consider. Not all ancient altered states required a substance. Some of the most powerful altered states in human history were achieved with nothing but the body itself. Sleep deprivation. After 36 to 48 hours without sleep, the human brain begins producing hallucinations, vivid, convincing, indistinguishable from reality. Ancient shamans and mystics around the world used deliberate sleep deprivation as a spiritual tool. The visions weren't seen as symptoms. They were seen as messages. Fasting produces similar effects. After extended fasting, the brain shifts into a different metabolic state. Ketosis. Perception sharpens. Time distorts. Visions appear. The vision quest practiced by dozens of indigenous cultures was essentially a controlled fast designed to produce an altered mental state interpreted as spiritual revelation. Sensory deprivation achieved the same result. Sitting alone in complete darkness, in complete silence for extended periods, causes the brain to generate its own input. Ancient cave rituals may have exploited this deliberately. Some researchers believe cave paintings were made in the deepest, darkest chambers of caves, specifically because the sensory deprivation triggered altered states that made the paintings feel more real, more sacred. Now, here is the one that surprises everyone. Rhythm. Sustained rhythmic drumming at specific tempos between 4 and 7 beats per second reliably induces altered states in humans. Not metaphorically, measurably. On brain scans, this is called rhythmic entrainment. The brain synchronizes its own electrical activity to external rhythmic stimuli. At certain frequencies, this produces theta brain waves, the same waves associated with deep meditation, hypnotic states, and the moments just before sleep, when hallucinations naturally occur. Every shamanic tradition on Earth uses sustained drumming. The Siberian shamans, the West African griots, the Native American ceremonies, the Aboriginal Australian rituals. All of them independently discovered that sustained rhythm changes the mind, without any substance at all. Dance extends this further. Sustained aerobic movement for hours produces endorphins, reduces activity in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for self-awareness and critical thinking, and creates a state that feels transcendent. The same brain region that goes quiet during dreams. the same region that goes quiet during psychedelic experiences. This is why every human culture has ritual dance, not because they all copied each other, because they all independently discovered that moving the body to rhythm for long enough takes you somewhere else. There is one altered state every human experiences every single night, without choosing it, without any substance, without any ritual. Dreams. Ancient humans didn't understand dreams the way we do. They had no concept of REM sleep, no neuroscience, no explanation for why. When they closed their eyes, they entered a world that felt completely real, where the dead spoke to them, where impossible things happened, where the future sometimes seemed to reveal itself. So they built entire systems around dreams. The ancient Egyptians had professional dream interpreters, called the masters of the secret things. They kept records of dreams and their meanings going back thousands of years. The ancient Greeks practiced dream incubation. Sick people would travel to temples of Asclepius, the god of medicine sleep on sacred ground, and wait for the god to appear in their dreams and prescribe a cure. This wasn't superstition to them. This was medicine. The Aboriginal Australians built their entire cosmology around what they called the dream time. Not a metaphor. A literal alternate reality that existed alongside the waking world accessible through dreams, ritual, and trance. Their entire understanding of history, law, and identity came from this altered state. So here is the question that ties everything together. Why did every single human culture, across every continent, across every time period, independently discover ways to alter their minds? The answer has three parts. First, the human brain is uniquely capable of altered states. Our large prefrontal cortex, the part that creates our sense of self and reality, can be temporarily suppressed by chemicals, by rhythm, by exhaustion, by deprivation. And when it goes quiet, something else comes through. Second, altered states were useful, not just pleasurable, useful. They reduced anxiety before dangerous hunts. They created social bonding across groups. They allowed leaders to make decisions with apparent divine authority. They processed grief and trauma in ways normal consciousness couldn't. The tribes that had effective ritual practices were more cohesive, more resilient, and more likely to survive. Third, and perhaps most importantly, altered states allowed ancient humans to think differently. When the normal constraints of the prefrontal cortex are lifted, the brain makes connections it normally wouldn't. Pattern recognition increases. Creative problem-solving improves. This is why so many breakthrough insights in human history have come to people in dreams, in feverish states, in moments of deep meditation. The altered mind sees things the normal mind misses. So here is the full picture. Ancient humans altered their minds through fermented alcohol, discovered by accident, through psychoactive plants found on every continent, through sleep deprivation and fasting, through sustained rhythm and dance, through the nightly altered state of dreaming. They didn't do this because they were primitive. They did this because they were human. And here is the uncomfortable truth. Nothing has changed. Your morning coffee alters your brain chemistry. Your evening glass of wine alters your brain chemistry. Your phone, with its infinite scroll and dopamine notifications, is altering your brain chemistry right now. The drive to feel different, to step outside your normal mind, has never gone away. The ancient shaman sitting in a dark cave, surrounded by the sound of drums, waiting for a vision, and you lying in bed at midnight, scrolling through a screen that never ends, are doing the same thing, looking for a way out of your ordinary mind. The method changed. The drive never did.